Oh, look, and we have a long float caught there. This is not going according to plan. This does not bode well for the rest of this project. 24 hours starts now. By this time tomorrow, I will have completed a Fair Isle sweater. Now this is only possible because I work with knitting machines, but to make this more of a challenge, I have not done any prep for this project. I don't have any yarn, I haven't picked out a pattern, I don't even know what Fair Isle motifs I want to use. So not only will I have to knit a whole sweater in 24 hours, I will have to design a whole sweater in 24 hours. Why do I do this to myself? I hope you enjoy watching me suffer. Now that Joann's has closed, I only have a few options for yarn. There's Michael's and Walmart. I also have a local yarn store, but this project does not have a budget for my local yarn store. I think I'm going to start at Michael's because I do not enjoy spending time at Walmart. Big box and craft stores tailor their inventory to hand knitters, and hand knitters like bulkier yarns. Most knitting machines out there are standard gauge, so they work best with lace and fingering weight yarns, but I have a bulky knitting machine. This is my Brother 270. It's an electronic machine that was made in the early 90s, and it's now fully supported by AYAB, which is what this hardware is over here. It works best with yarn weights 4 and 5, so I should be able to find something that works for it at the craft store. I'm also looking for acrylic yarn because I need to swatch for this project, and I really don't have the time to wait for wool swatches to dry. I can do this. All right, let's go get some yarn. We are back, and I did find everything I needed at Michael's. I didn't have to go to Walmart, which is a win in my book. I have 2 skeins of gray loops and threads, and I have 2 cakes of Karen smash cakes in this fabulous, like, bright neon stuff. I went into this thinking that I would be able to find some like gradient yarn that slowly transitioned between a couple different colors and then pair it with a neutral. That way, like I could do the Fair Isle motifs in the gradient and they'd like change color between rows, but I couldn't find anything that transitioned slowly enough for that to make sense. And then I couldn't find something that I could pair with a neutral that would fit well enough to get the color dominant so that you could actually see the Fair Isle motifs. So I went for the Karen cakes instead with this ridiculousness, thinking that I could do something a little more abstract instead of like recognizable Fair Isle stuff. So I'm hoping that out of this I get something vaguely 80s inspired. So I'm looking at making an oversized sweater, probably with my Black Sheep sweater pattern, which is available for channel members. But I have to swatch first and see how this looks and get all set up to do Fair Isle on my machine. But I spent $37, and that's almost entirely the Karen cakes. These are like 12 bucks a pop. These are like 3, and like I get it, you get fun colors, and these are already cakes, so I don't have to like wind them on my yarn winder, but they are so expensive. But we'll see how they go, because I've only worked with like the skinny ones before, I never like these chunky boys. Okay, time to do some swatching. Oh, and we are about an hour into this process, so it took a little longer than I expected it to, but not too bad. All right, I'm gonna go cake these and then get set up, and then I'll show you swatching. I'm set up and ready to go. I have my Karen cake, which needed a lot of barf to actually get working, to find the end, and then I have my caked loops and threads, whatever. Here on my laptop, I have a pattern loaded. This is one of the ones that came with the 910. It's like an abstract 80s thing. It'll be fine for what we're doing. So let's get started. I need to cast on first. The point of view camera is fairly new, so let's grab a bunch on either side of 0. And then I'm casting on with my gray yarn because I have the most of it. And this is attention to 10 because I've worked with this kind of yarn before and it needs a fairly loose tension. There we go. Cake's a little tight. We have to put weight on the work on the knitting machine because the bed's at an angle and this keeps the work towards the needles in the right place. And put weights. And then we bring out the rest of the needles. And I'm going to hold on to the tail. Oh, that comb was stuck. Okay. We are in pretty good shape. All right, let's get set up for patterning. And this cake's a little tight. I should rewind it, but I'm going to pull the barf out of the center and that'll make it a little less dense. On the carriage, this knob goes to KC, and there are magnets on the back over here. They need to be past the turn mark, which is right here. And you can see it's hooked into the timing belt, which moves. And then we come over to the laptop and we hit knit. Come on. And then we come back over here. The beeping means that we're set up. And then we knit. Let's put some weights on that. Okay, we have needles selected, so now it is time to load the second color, and to do that we hit the MC button on the carriage, and then grab the second color, and it goes in the feeder here. And that's knitting fairly well. I'm gonna move my claw weights up, and we're gonna get an idea of how this looks. This is the back side of the work, so we don't know what it's going to look like, at least not for a few more rows. The weights need to be moved up periodically. Get some interesting patterning starting already. But this is the back side. My yarn's getting tangled. Oh, and my tension mask got messed up. Oh my god. Back to knitting. Get a loop here, because it got caught on something. And a loop there. This is why we swatch, to understand how the yarn behaves. This is happening because I have pulled some barf out of both cakes, and it's kind of sitting behind the machine. Ugh. Oh, look, and we have a long float caught there. This is not going according to plan. This does not bode well for the rest of this project. Let's knit a few more rows. Oh, and we've completed one full repeat. I'm going to change the pattern to something else so we can see what something else looks like. So here's what's going on my laptop. We're going to cancel this. Then find something else. I want to do this one by one thing. And we're back. I've loaded up the new pattern. Let's see how it knits. Ah! My yarn keeps getting twisted and caught on things. Oh my god. So here's what's going on. The yarn is caught back here, and it has folded down the tension mast, which is not supposed to do. Oh, and I've lost one of the thingies in the tension mast. Ugh. Maybe I'm learning this yarn is a pain in the ass to work with. You know what? I'm going to move this yarn over here so it's not as close to the gray yarn, so they're less likely to get tangled. And it can all just come out of here. Okay. And then you come out of the wire into the other wire. All right. We swatch so we can learn how the yarn behaves. And let's keep going. Probably don't have enough of weight on this as well because this is a fairly bulky yarn. And that tells me it's done. So I'm going to knit one last row. And then we are going to bind off. So I'm going to cut the fancy yarn, put it in the holder thingy, pull it out of the carriage so it doesn't get in the way. And then push all my needles back in. And then the gray yarn comes out. And we'll do a gate peg bind off with my transfer tool. Oh man, I'm looking at my monitor and seeing that this whole thing only took 11 minutes. It felt like a lot longer than that. All right, we're bound off. Now the weights come off. The weights on the bottom come off. Now it can come off the machine. Let me pull that last loop through. And here we go. Ooh, wow, that's busy. Okay, that's a lot. That's like a lot. I might want to do like, what's going on? I might want to do like 2 rows of gray, 2 stitches of gray, and then 1 of the fancy yarn. But like that's also a lot. That's kind of cool with like the diagonal stripes. But these floats wind up being long. And those will get caught on stuff, especially because this is acrylic and it's not wool, and that's not going to felt down at all. So yeah, I was right in thinking that this was not going to be able to be turned into something where it was like recognizable motifs because of the stitch definition. But this is a lot. This is like a lot. All right, I'm going to wash this and block it and see what I think after it's done. And then we'll make some decisions about what kind of sweater I'm going to make. And this has to go through a full cycle of wash and dry because when you're swatching, you want to treat your swatch the same way you're going to treat the final sweater. And this is acrylic, and I want to be able to just throw it in the wash, so that's what I'm going to do. So hopefully in that time, I have time to get lunch, do some more planning for the rest of this, and then by the time it's done, we'll be ready to start knitting. But first, the most important part. The most important part is taking a photo to send to my mom to see what she thinks. To the wash. Actually, time checking. We are an hour and a half into this. Okay, we're making good time. I've got a pile of things. Let me explain what's going on. My swatch came out of the wash. This is what it looks like. This is enough to get a gauge. I'm not thrilled with any of the patterns that I used here, but this tells me a lot about the yarn and how it's going to behave. And while it was in the wash, I had enough time to eat some lunch and do some thinking about patterns and talk to my mom about what might look good with this yarn. And I came up with a few options with like zigzaggy things. And this is still too busy. It's hard to tell what's going on. So I think I'm going to go with this, which it's a little easier to tell what's going on. And this will make more sense across like a whole garment and photographed. So that's my swatches. And I was able to get a gauge off of this. And then I decided that I'm going to be making the same sweater as the black sheep sweater. This is the black sheep sweater. I have a video about this. This is a sweater that Princess Diana wore in the 80s before she married What's-His-Face, and I did a whole video on recreating it from a hand knitting pattern and made my own machine knitting pattern from it. This is a fill-in-the-blank pattern where you like enter your measurements and your gauge and it spits out a pattern that works for you, and my printer is dying, so I had to handwrite over what some of the things were. But this pattern is available for channel members. I'll put a link to where you can find it if you are a channel member, or if you want to become a channel member, you just like click the join button and get access to a bunch of stuff, which I'll talk about in a bit. Anyway, okay, it's time to knit a sweater because I have my pattern and my pattern and my yarn, and we are 3.5 hours into this, so I think I'm making good time. Let's get started. This pattern starts with the sleeves because they're just big rectangles that get gathered down later into the cuffs. Let's do this. Okay, so we're making good time. I have 2 sleeves. Oh, my timer! Oh, crap. Ugh. It was about 5.5 hours. Come on. Of course things go wrong. Let's count down. 24 hours minus 5.5 hours. Hey Google, 24 minus 5.5.
The answer is 18.5.
18. 30. All right, we're counting down now because I dropped my timer and the battery popped out and it reset itself. So we're making good time, but there are some issues. All right, I have both of my sleeves knit. They just need to be finished. The green here is waste yarn, so it's gonna come off. It's just there to protect live stitches that I'm gonna need later, and like that will be sewn together in like a kitchen stitch kind of thing to finish it. So we got sleeves. We have the back panel fully finished with ribbing at the bottom, and that's some interesting pooling. That's pretty cool. I wonder if the front will do the same thing. It's the same width, it'll just be at a different point in the repeat. But while I was making the back panel, my carriage broke. This piece, which fits about here, if you can see that, and helps shuffle the needles into the right place in the carriage channel, broke off. And I don't know if I can replace this, I don't know if I can repair this, but I don't have the ability to do that right now. And this is the only bulky machine that I have, so I can't use something else. So what I've been doing is just being really, really careful with it. Like if the needle's ever so slightly in the wrong place, the carriage gets stuck and it won't go. So you have to bump it up a little bit and then it'll knit. And it only impacts needles that are trying to pattern, so the ones that are sticking out into position D. But this sucks. I'm pretty sure I can finish the sweater from here. I think this is not going to end things, but after this I'm going to have to go and check with some friends and see what the best solution is to fix this, because this is not good. Went right there. I wonder if I can get that piece on the internet somewhere. Oh, but the tariffs have kicked in, and it'll be stupid expensive to get it from anywhere outside the US. We'll see. But this is the underside of carriage of an electronic knitting machine. They're fairly complicated, but really cool. And all of this, actually, the complicated carriages have been around since at least the late 70s, so a long time. Okay, back to knitting. That's not right. That's right. Rebooting everything fixed it. almost done. Here's the final panel. Come on. Oh, it's getting caught on my machine. This has some slightly different pulling, but still pretty cool. And I have 17 hours and 22 minutes left. There's a little bit more knitting to do. I need to join the front and the back at one shoulder and then knit the neckline. But I need to eat dinner before I cease to function, so I'm gonna go do that and I'll be back to knit the rest of this. But we're making good time. Alright, I have the body assembled at one shoulder, and now I need to rehang all of these stitches on the machine, and right side facing the machine, wrong side facing me, and open up these latches. I've been debating what to do with the neckline because I am almost completely out of gray yarn. And I did the cuffs and the hems in the gray yarn, but I'm thinking that I'm just gonna do a bunch of the brightly colored stuff and then let it roll over the way the stockinette does. Not quite turtleneck style, but a little shorter than that. And that way, it's a little less effort to finish it, because otherwise I would have had to sew all of the final stitches down, and now I won't have to do that. This is why we have waste yarn, so I can do stuff like this. I don't have to like bind off and then pick up the bound off stitches. I can just go do things. And then this towel is on my ribber to prevent the knit from getting stuck, because that often happens. There's like a lot of like sticky edges that the knit gets stuck on. So let's put you there, and then that's the end, and then these middle stitches need to be hung as they are. So let's like center that. So we're like 43, 41, 2, 3. Oh, I can't count. 43, and then so it's about 53 stitches. So the middle of 53 would be 25, 26. That's not right. Right, yes, but it's 15 because it's offset by 10. Don't judge the way I do math. I have a degree. I just have never been able to do basic math. So 15 is about the center, and I have, I think, 24 center stitches. Half of 24 is 12, so 15 minus 12 is going to be about 3. So let's put that there. Okay, and then these side boys, and this is a loop that showed up because I did the thing wrong. That's okay. These get, let's go one on the other side of that seam. Pick up something in the middle, something in the middle. Something in the middle, something in the middle. And just splits the difference until we get everything back on the machine. And then over here as well. All right, everybody's on the machine. That's always the coolest part of this, when the whole sweater winds up on the machine. Okay. These have to get stuffed between the beds so that they wind up hanging down straight and not at a weird angle. Oh, crap, stuff's getting stuck. Go, go, go. And then it needs weights. Here's what I'm doing. That's stuck. The weights. I'm getting tired. When I get tired, my dexterity goes to shit. That's what I get for going for a big run and then challenging myself to do all of this. Okay, so this, oh, it's stuck on the Velcro. This is all of the gray yarn that I have left. That's not enough to do a collar. But I have this much of the colorful stuff left, and that's fine. All right, this is not going to want to knit nicely, so I'm going to bring everybody out. Oh, there's not even a stitch on that one. The heck? Or that one. How did I miss those two? Okay. By bringing these out all the way, the carriage has to do a little bit less work trying to knit them. So we're going to push them back just a little bit. And the pattern wants me to knit 11 rows, but we'll see how I'm feeling. Carriage is set correctly. Grab my yarn. Oh, you're going to cause problems. Oh my god. Yeah, it's the end of the day. I really need to like slow down and quit before I make any massive mistakes, but there's probably not anything really big I can screw up at this point. Into the carriage. Reset the row counter. Knit. So that was a bit of a struggle. I hope the next row is better. Okay. That is the 9 rows it wants me to knit. I'm going to go to 17, which is what I've been knitting for 3 inches of stuff. And then this is going to roll over this way. Oh boy. That really didn't want to knit. Alright, let's call it. Gonna leave a long tail so that I can sew this later. Some bind-offs look prettier and are more stretchy than something I can do on the machine, and I need that because I need to get my head through this because it's the neckline. Get that out of the way. Oh my god. Oh my god, it's stuck on everything. It's stuck on everything. Okay, let's pull you from here and then from there. Oh my god, it's stuck again. Oh my god, just get off. Okay, waste yarn. I need just enough waste yarn this is not going to unravel before I have the chance to sew it up. Okay. We're done. Weights come off. Ow. The thingies are sharp. And then off the machine it comes. There it goes. She's done. Oh crap, it's getting stuck on needles. Okay. There it is. And then this neckline is just gonna fold up. Like curl up, because that's what stockinette does. All right. It's stuck. It's stuck. Oh my God, get off. The sweater is done. And by that, I mean all of the knitting is done. I still have to do some assembly and some finishing by hand, but that's gonna happen inside and happen later. And I have 15 hours left. 15 hours and 42 minutes left. So this, where's the back? That's the front. This goes like this. Across here. We got some interesting pooling on the front, which is cool. And then these are going to be balloon sleeves that go here. And here. And all the green comes off. That's just like, if you were hand knitting, you'd use a stitch saver, but it's much easier to just knit more rows of waste yarn on a machine than it is to like take things off and put them on a stitch saver. But this is what the sweater is going to look like when it's done. I just have to finish it by hand, and I have all of tonight and then some of tomorrow morning to figure it out. And I will get a full night of sleep and be able to run a whole load of laundry in that time period, because I know how long it takes me to sew things up, and it's only going to take a couple hours. Okay, to the inside. It's done. I didn't finish it last night because I crashed. I would not recommend knitting for that long in any one day. My back was really starting to hurt. Knitting Fair Isle takes more force than regular knitting, and doing it for that long can kill your back. And we have 51 minutes left. And that is with a full night's sleep. And also I have showered already today. So this is totally doable. Let me show you. It is a lot. It is a lot, but I think I love it. I think I love it. Where's the front? That's the front. Look at that. It's got like a stained glass thing going on, but the neon makes it very 80s. And this hasn't been blocked yet. So it still needs to be blocked and it'll change a little bit once it's blocked. But oh my God, it is possible to design and knit an entire sweater in 24 hours. Okay, let me go block this and then we'll do last looks. Here is the final sweater, washed and blocked. It softened up a lot in the wash. And I don't know if you'll be able to hear me. Let me move my microphone. It softened up a lot in the wash and the pooling came out really cool. There are ways to do this on purpose, but this is just random. So first, I met my original goal. I started with nothing, and then 24 hours later, I have a completed Fair Isle sweater. And I even managed to get a full night's sleep, and that was with my carriage breaking towards the end. I ordered a replacement part. I hope it gets here soon. The tariff situation is still questionable. Second, I would not have made this sweater if not for this challenge. It's very different than my normal style and the sweaters that I tend to gravitate towards, but I love it anyway. The constraints that I put upon myself with this challenge forced me to get creative and step outside of my comfort zone to make something within the time constraint. What do you think? Would you wear this sweater? What would you do if you had to make a full sweater in 24 hours? Are there any other challenges you want me to try? Let me know in the comments. This project generated a lot of waste yarn, but don't worry, this is not going to waste. I have a plan for it, so stick around for that. It goes in the jar. If you want to know more about knitting machines and what they can do and what they're capable of, that's my whole channel. Go watch some more videos. If you want to know more about AYAB, the software that I use to knit this pattern, it's open source software and hardware that replaces your machine's original electronics. I work on it. We recently released our first stable version of the software. There are links to videos and more information in the description. If you want to know more about this base sweater pattern, go check out the Black Sheep sweater video, and this pattern is available to channel members. Speaking of channel members, I'd like to thank channel members who make videos like this possible. If you'd like to become a channel member and support this channel, you can click the join button down below. All channel members get early access to new videos, and channel members at the mid-tier and higher get access to members-only videos. Those are behind-the-scenes things, yarn unboxings, upcoming projects, and more health updates that I'd like to have to give. But if that's your thing, go check it out. Thanks for watching. Happy knitting!